talking about the future of bookkeeping, both for accountants and bookkeepers, is Ami Copeland, the CEO of the ICB. So warm round of applause for Ami Copeland, please.
Hello, good morning everybody. What a wonderful start to conference season. Thank you so much, Johan, for putting this event on. This is going to be the start of our year now forever, I think. I'm so pleased to be here. I'm going to be talking about making tax digital for income tax. I'm not sure if it's actually officially now called MTD Fit, because there's an F in it. And yeah, I mean, obviously we're all hoping it's going to be fit for purpose when it actually gets launched. And what I think is really exciting about MTD is that I really believe it's going to drive a huge change in the way that bookkeepers and accountants collaborate. And that collaboration is going to be, of course, in service to the client, but also I think it's going to help you all build the practices that you really want to build. So let's see if the clicker works. There we go. So I'm Ami Copeland. I'm the CEO of ICB. We are the fourth largest accountancy body supervisor, and we have got a really nice niche. I'm sure we're going to be talking about niching here today, but our niche is bookkeepers, and we're actually the only professional body that specializes in bookkeepers, so we're super pleased about that. We love bookkeepers, we love bookkeeping, and we really see that making tax digital is a way to get the pleasures and the benefits of bookkeeping out to more businesses, even those sole traders and landlords. And just I've put here as well, we are seeing about 1,000 new bookkeeping students coming up the ranks every year. So if you've got a people pipeline problem within your business, hopefully you might think about ICB when you next come to hire, because we've got lots and lots of graduates who would be fabulous in your practice. So, two important things to know about making tax digital for income tax. It is definitely happening. So there's no going back now. This time it's going to be launched. But also, more importantly, I think, it's got a really misleading name. Did anyone actually do a self-assessment tax return in January? Oh, here we go. I can actually see you guys now. Did anyone do a self-assessment tax return in January? Yeah? How did you do that? Yeah, you did that digitally, didn't you? So it's not going to make a huge change to tax. Here's the definition: keeping digital records and sending quarterly updates to HMRC. You've got to do it digitally. Your clients have got to be using approved software. That could be spreadsheets plus bridging software. It could be bookkeeping software. But it's got to be on the list of HMRC approved MTD compatible software. And these quarterly updates are what HMRC is terming light touch. They really are just the total of income and expenses, and if you're using the right software, it will create those totals for you, and you will literally press a button. So MTD is not about tax, it's about bookkeeping. So what a tremendous opportunity. We've got HMRC mandating that sole traders and landlords have now got to do bookkeeping. They've got to use the right software, and they've got to prove it on a quarterly basis. This is a huge change. And what that's going to do, we think, is drive up the value ever more on bookkeeping services. Now, I actually watched a webinar run by one of the software companies that's here today. I won't mention their name. But there were over 1,000 people in this webinar. And I kind of got distracted from what they were talking about because I was looking at the comments in the chat. And they were so negative about making tax digital for income tax. And there were accountants saying, oh, I run a once-a-year tax practice, and I just don't know how I can do this. How am I going to do the equivalent of 4 tax returns a year? How am I going to sell this as a service? My clients won't pay for what I'm doing anyway. And then one sole voice actually said this. This is a direct quote. I don't know if Claire is here today, but the lovely Claire popped in the chat. Am I the only one that's looking forward to this? Isn't this a great thing? Systemization and sole traders looking at their figures and understanding them a bit better. But then I'm a bookkeeper. So if you are a bookkeeper who's already doing regular bookkeeping, you understand the value of real-time data, your clients are seeing that value as well, making tax digital for income tax is going to be pretty much business as usual for you. But I think where we're seeing a gap is in these once-a-year tax practices that do not yet understand how to bring the value of bookkeeping to their clients. So we're going to talk about, how do you price those services? Are those the kind of services you want to offer? So, in order to survive making tax digital for income tax, you've got to work like a bookkeeper, or you've got to work with a bookkeeper. So there are some choices you need to make when you think about your practice and where you want to take it in the future. So, some key stages for making tax digital we want to bear in mind. You probably know this already. So from April 2026, only 13 months away, sole traders and landlords with self-employed income totaling 50k, above 50k, are going to be mandated into making tax digital for income tax. And that threshold reduces down to 30,000 within 1 year. And then the government has committed to bringing this in for anybody earning from self-employed income 20,000 or more by the end of this government, so that's 2029. And these cohorts get bigger every time. And what you really need to do, I mean, you may know this already, but the key thing, the reason you need to start thinking about this now, is that HMRC brown envelopes are going to be dropping on the doors of agents next month. It's not March yet, is it? Next week, starting on the 6th of March. And then come April, I think it's actually due to be the 7th of April onwards, your clients are going to start receiving letters from HMRC. Now, of course, they may just ignore them, and it'll make no difference whatsoever. But I imagine what they will do is come to you and ask you for advice on this. So just bear in mind that this is, these letters are going out to sole traders and landlords who, based on the tax return that's just been sent in, 23-24, are earning 50k or above from self-employed income. And if you're not a tax agent, so if you're a bookkeeper who's not doing self-assessment tax, you will not receive a letter from HMRC. So you may need to kind of wheedle some of this information out from your clients, find out if they've got this brown envelope that they've just shoved under a pile somewhere. Now, in May, HMRC is going to start writing out to the self-employed people who are earning 45k or above. But what you might be starting to think is, well, what about my high-growth clients who definitely were not earning 45k or above in that 23-24 tax return? If they start to grow and they earn more than 50k, they're only going to find out this time next year when HMRC looks at the qualifying income, which will be the 24-25 income tax filed in January next year. So they will have literally 1 month to register for making tax digital for income tax and get all their ducks in a row. So you need to start thinking about all of this. It's like same old story. You need to start thinking for your clients. So think about the clients you've got. I think usually step one for making tax digital for income tax is going to be about segmenting your clients, understanding your client base. Now, you will naturally be thinking about anyone who's going to fall into that initial threshold, 50,000 turnover, and that's gross turnover. But what you should also be thinking, of course, is what types of clients are they? So your clients who are already using digital record keeping, perhaps you're doing the books, perhaps you're working alongside a bookkeeper who's doing the books, that is probably going to be your low-hanging fruit, isn't it? So maybe you need to start thinking about the clients you've got that are on paper records. You are probably going to get quite a lot of resistance from that kind of client, I would imagine. But think about the clients that you've got. Think about the ones that are just particularly awkward. You might want to look after them first, prioritize them, get the message out there. But just bear in mind that they are going to be receiving these letters from HMRC. And it's a really good idea to really look at that base of clients. And then, once you've done that, start to think about the clients that you want to have. So when I was watching this webinar with all these negative comments, a lot of these accountants said, well, I charge 150 quid, 250 quid, 350 quid for a tax return at the end of the year. if I'm going to do quarterly submissions, I'm going to have to charge 4 times that. Well, that's what bookkeepers are charging every month. So if you're an accountant that is offering this once-a-year service, just think about, is this the moment that you might want to change your practice? Do you want to start providing a more regular service? Maybe this is something that you can do yourself. Maybe it's something that you want to work with another firm for. And likewise, bookkeepers, is this an opportunity for you to expand your practice? Are you interested in the sole trader market? Because what I think is probably going to happen is that you will be contacted even more by taxpayers who need your help. And they're not going to do it straight away. They're going to leave it to the last possible minute. So I think what you need to try to do is be really intentional about how you want to run your business going forward. And just make sure that you are not taking on any old client because they need your help. I spoke to somebody earlier in the exhibition. They said, I'll just take anybody. But maybe this is a moment to actually really think about where you want to take your practice next. Now, in April 2026, there are about 800,000 taxpayers coming into Making Tax Digital for income tax, half of which, in fact, over half of which, are not VAT registered. So these are likely to be the taxpayers that do not have an agent, are not using digital tools, and are probably going to need a lot of help. This could be a fantastic opportunity if that's the kind of client that you want, if you're interested in those sole traders. And obviously bearing in mind that this is the sole traders that are earning the most compared to the later cohorts. So 780,000 coming in April 2026. By April 2027, there will be 1 million more taxpayers who are earning 30K or above. And those cohorts, like I said, are just getting bigger and bigger. So just think about that. Are you able to provide a service to this kind of business? And do you want to? And how will you resource that? And really, I suppose the big question is, what do you actually want for your practice? Do you want to do this? And when I was watching this webinar, all these accountants saying, well, you know, that's going to be impossible. I can't get the data from my clients once a year, let alone 4 times a year. This is going to be insane. And the number of these accountants who said, I'm going to retire. This is it for me. And I think this is actually something we heard when we brought in VAT, Making Tax Digital, that some practitioners are going to come out of the profession for this. And what does that mean? That means even more businesses who need the help of a good bookkeeper. So what do you actually want, and how will you make this work? And if you are one of these once-a-year tax practitioners, can you work alongside a bookkeeper who has got a system in place to get all of that data that you need to make Making Tax Digital work? So has anybody heard of multi-agent access? I was hoping it would be called, double agent access. But I guess the idea is you might have lots and lots of agents if you're super lucky. I think probably a lot of these taxpayers will be lucky if they've got just one agent. But this is something that ICB campaigned really hard for. We thought this was massively important to the success of Making Tax Digital. And what it means is you can split up the work. Now, you might typically, I haven't said which one of these is a bookkeeper or an accountant, but what it means is you can do the quarterly submissions as a separate process, and then still the tax return or the final declaration, as it will be called, can be done by an accountant or a tax specialist. And so to us, it seems that there's a very clear distinction of the work here. Now, there are options here. In terms of the quarterly submissions, you are doing this kind of light touch return. You're just giving the totals of income and expenses. But what do you do about your accounting adjustments? What do you do about your tax adjustments? And what you might need to just play about with is this handover between 2 agents, double agents, multiple agents. When do you hand it over from the bookkeeper to the accountant? Where do you do your accounting adjustments? You might also be dealing with a handover in software as well. So that's something to consider. Now, the quarterly submissions can be very light touch. They are cumulative, so if you If everything needs to be changed, you don't have to go back in and change the submission you've already done. You just do an update in the next quarterly submission. And if necessary, you don't need to do any accounting adjustments at all. You can do that all later. Now, you can also submit what is called a BAS, a business adjustment statement, and you can make adjustments separate from the quarterly submissions before you go into the tax return, which will be due in the January as it normally is. And what's kind of cool about the adjustment statements is that multiple agents can submit their own adjustments, and the latest adjustment will be the one that's taken. So that's kind of interesting. So whilst that does seem very simple the way I put it up on the screen, there are things that you are going to have to build workflows around. And as soon as you're building a workflow, then we start understanding how this can be scalable. So if you want to start offering more services to these sole traders and these landlords that are coming in, you need to start thinking about these systems. Make sure that your services are scalable, that you've got workflows that can be passed on, so that you don't necessarily have to be doing all the work yourself. So lots of options there. What I really wanted to make sure today is that we all are very clear on the benefit of working with an ICB bookkeeper. So when I think about bookkeepers, I think mostly of workflows and systems. If you're struggling to understand how you might get the right kind of data from your clients 4 times a year, then I would highly recommend you turn to a local ICB bookkeeper who has got a workflow in place for this. One of the great things about bookkeepers is that they are tremendously tech savvy. And I think probably the once-a-year accountants are probably more likely to have paper-based clients who are not doing regular bookkeeping, whereas most bookkeepers have already transitioned their clients into digital record keeping. So you're really experts at making that transition and bringing business owners along with you. So bookkeepers are very tech savvy, they're really good with clients, and they are, of course, highly qualified. Now, a lot of accountants that I speak to, and I've been to a lot of Making Tax Digital workshops as well, a lot of accountants I speak to turn to me and they go, oh, you can get qualifications for bookkeepers, can you? Well, let me tell you, yes, you can. And ICB bookkeepers are qualified to do bookkeeping. They're qualified to do quarterly submissions. They're qualified to do accounting adjustments. And if they've got tax qualifications, they are qualified to do tax as well. So it's a very good idea to make sure that if you are hoping to bring on more clients, you've got a really sustainable way of offering these services. And you don't necessarily have to have your highest qualified person, which is probably you, doing all the work. So there are various different ways you might decide that you work out your MTD for income tax workflow. But if it involves potentially working with more people, consider that you don't necessarily have to employ more staff. That may not be possible for you. It may also be something that is just not going to work when you don't know how much business you're going to get. So you could employ somebody, you could train somebody that's already in your business. You could also outsource to a bookkeeper. And you could also to borrow a term that our sister body in the States uses a lot, you could co-firm. So co-firming is not about one of you subcontracts to the other. It's about just working alongside another firm that offers complementary services. So that's also an option. But what I really see as the opportunity here is for bookkeepers and accountants to work symbiotically together so that we've got 2 sets of eyes and we've got that oversight. But for accountants, if you are running this kind of practice where you just are struggling to understand how to make Making Tax Digital work, bear in mind that working alongside a really great bookkeeper will boost your profitability because you've got somebody else doing all of your client-facing throughout the year. You've got somebody else making sure that the data is there in real time, that it's accurate, that it's reliable. And that is going to boost your profitability, and then that's going to enable you to have bigger, deeper, higher value conversations with clients using all of that amazing data. So just returning to my initial point there, if you want to survive and thrive through Making Tax Digital for income tax, you've got to work like a bookkeeper or you've got to work with a bookkeeper. Now, I know that we've got a free agent coming in after lunch to talk to you a bit more about the timelines, the deadlines, and the requirements of making tax digital. But I think what's really important is that you take this moment now that you've stepped away from your desk and you've stopped helping your clients today to think about what you really want and how you are going to make this work. Now, if you want more guidance on making tax digital, I think one of the main things you need to do is speak to your software providers and see what solutions they have. If you want to service those spreadsheet clients, get yourself some good bridging software, and a lot of the main software companies will have something in place for that as well. But also, really lean on your networks and use events like this to meet other firm owners that can help you. And whether that be outsourcing, employing, training, co-firming, find something that works for you and the future of your business. Now, at ICB, we've got various webinars coming up to help you with some more information. I am going to be interviewing Craig Ogilvie of HMRC. He's the director of HMRC, poor guy. Director of Making Tax Digital. So we're going to do a live Q&A with him on the 19th of March. So if you've got specific questions, you can ask us about those. The blurb for that event says I'm going to be grilling him. On the 24th of March, we're going to be talking about profiling your clients. We've got one of our accounting/bookkeeping practices. Steve Worrell is going to be talking to us about profiling clients and really understanding the nature of your business and where you can take it in the future. And then on the 30th of March, we have got Rebecca Benningworth going through the step-by-step process. So currently, there's about 4 people in the UK that have actually done a self-assessment quarterly submission, and Rebecca Benningworth is one of them. So we will be taking you through this, and these events are all available to anybody. But also, let me just please encourage you, if you do need a bookkeeper in any workflow that's going to suit your business, you can find one on the ICB website. We've got a free directory called Find a Bookkeeper, and you can find a bookkeeper using a postcode search, or you can also put a job vacancy in there as well. And if you want to train anybody, if you've got any trainees, and you want to give them good bookkeeping skills, we can help with that as well. Thank you very much. Good luck with Making Tax Digital.